What is up, everybody? So we do have some news here. It does look like part of it has been canceled, the virtual court part, as far as the bail hearing has been canceled, but I have been in contact right away, which thank goodness for, I'm not going to say their name, but I've been in contact with one of the assistants to the Judge Walton team, one of the team assistants handling the case, and whatever media press requests coming through. So I've gotten report back that the case has been stayed and that they're pushing it till at least October 5th for the bail. And from what I'm understanding, that means they're still going to be sitting there until then. So either way, that's what the outcome of today's hearing was going to be, was whether or not they were going to be staying until the actual trial or not. And I guess they're still pushing that back. There's still a lot of the investigation that's needing to be done. And I guess they're still taking a lot more into consideration with regards to Ruby's eligibility for bail due to the fact that it's such a complex situation. So with that said, either way, they're still going to be sitting there for another while. That's still like another month, just over a month, I guess, or just under a month. Sorry. So the portion of the bail, it's good news. Either way, it's good news. So that portion, that's still pending whether or not they're going to get bail. So they're both going to be sitting there till at least October 5th. So we'll be keeping an eye on when that next trial will be going. But it looks like there's still something going to be happening today. I'm still in the waiting area, and it's still saying the webcast hasn't started yet. So I am going to leave that on, and I think we are going to just continue as we were going to for this morning. I have a news presentation, and I was going to kind of improv the news cycle here until it was going to begin, and get everybody filled in on everything that's happened so far, everything leading up to that what would have been the hearing today. I think there's still supposed to be a custody hearing today, so that might be what's going to be on the side here. Either way, I'm not going to be able to transmit it electronically, the visual or audio, so it will be just a live reporting of it. But with that said, I'm going to just keep it and leave it in there, leave myself sitting in there like I did last time, where a lot of people thought they were getting kicked and a lot of people weren't able to make it in last time. But I just sat there quietly, didn't turn on my mic, didn't turn on my camera, nothing in there. Just left it sitting, didn't back out, didn't do anything. Like when it started doing weird cycles, I think a lot of people backed out and tried to get in again, and that's how they ended up getting bumped. So I'm just going to leave it, and we'll just see what happens with that. Either way, I'm going to keep an eye on what people are reporting. I think there were some folks that are going to be reporting outside of the courthouse, and whatever other news comes up from between us, I will be here for it. We'll be reporting on it live. So without further ado, let's I guess we'll start the presentation, and I'll start see what you guys have to say in chat. We'll keep this poll, or I guess we'll end this poll now because we know what the outcome was for that. But yeah, so she didn't make it out. So you guys thought maybe she'd get released today, but they still couldn't decide on that, I guess. So they're juggling things around and changing things up, and that's fine. I mean, hey, as long as she's sitting in there, they're both sitting in there thinking about what they did. I don't care how long it takes for them to decide. So anyways, one second here. I had it already there we go. It was pre-sized and preset. So anyways, welcome everybody. Welcome Iffy, Angel, Caroline. Who else we got in here? Loki. Jamie's here. Wow. Rebecca. Valentino. Becky. Audrey. We got Ann, Lily. Everybody's in here. Everybody's in the chat. Welcome to all the lurkers. Welcome to everybody tuning in from, I guess, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are tuning in from.
Brian, thank you. Unfortunately, Southern Utah has had its fair share of trauma and also recovery. Yeah, and the YouTube vlogger case is the latest high-profile example. Our Brian Malahy reporting from St. George for us today.
So much beauty and so many good people here, but Southern Utah has also been the place of FLDS trauma, Warren Jeffs, the Lost Boys, and natural disasters too. Joyous occasion today, a patriotic dedication of the new Washington County Administration Building. but also on the minds of people in St. George, the mom vloggers Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt, and the stunning child abuse allegations against them.
It's really shocking for this community.
Mitzi Eddington grew up here.
The place you love, the place you know, you feel safe.
Yeah, so I'm having a look here too. Apparently there are copious, they use the word copious amounts of new evidence that's come up in the case. So like what I had figured was because I guess I don't know if you guys had noticed, some of you guys are just joining us here, but we did notice that when they were reporting on Kevin Franke going back to the house in Springville, and he was bringing his belongings back and going in, and they had pictures with him speaking to the neighbor and standing out front of the house there. People noticed, and I noticed, they had the door was all bashed up. They had the door taped up, the front door, so as if like it had been smashed in, so they had broke in, like the law enforcement. So I'm guessing they had seized all the hard drives and had seized all the probably her cell phones, you know, whatever other devices that may have been involved, like iPads, anything that any devices in the home, all of the electronics, all the hard drives, all of that stuff. So I'm guessing they've been combing through all of that this past couple weeks. And again, probably too, there's still a lot to go through, and which is likely why they're waiting to decide on the bail as well, to be able to accurately decide whether or not she's a threat to any of the family outside of being in prison, whether she should stay in there or not. So there could be a lot more that's been found. Like, as we know, it was obviously worse when the camera was off. She had even mentioned herself that, you know, the camera keeps her under control, that we're not going to repeat the tongue lashing that I gave you, or whatever she said, quote unquote, the tongue lashing, that the one daughter that she had given, and then they had turned the camera on. She said, we're not going to repeat it. It's not to be recorded, but you took your lashing really well, or whatever. There's a clip of that, right? So we know that it was a lot worse when the camera was off, so I'm sure that there was more content that hadn't been deleted yet after cutting it and putting it into videos and posting it online, right? So I'm sure there's so much more to it. And as I had thought too before, that in my guts, I thought there might be more going on behind the scenes too, in ways that maybe they've made new discoveries that way, and that's why she threw out certain allegations towards the children. So anyways, we're going to keep running through here as I notice new evidence, or sorry, not new evidence, but new reports or anything else coming out with regards to that. I'll let you know. But otherwise, again, we'll continue the presentation as pre-planned. It sounds like the bail hearing's been moved. It's been stayed until at least October 5th, so they're going to be sitting in there until at least October 5th. But there is still this webcast hearing. Like, I'm still sitting in it, and it says this webcast hasn't started yet. So as far as they're saying that the main thing was canceled, I don't know if we're still going to be able to get in and hear what's going on with the custody hearing. I'm not even sure if I'd be allowed to tell you guys what happened with the custody hearing or not until after. I'm not really sure, so I'm going to look in the legalities of that as well, because obviously I got to cover my butt here. But yeah, so it sounds like there's going to be so much more coming out about this. Guaranteed there's going to be some more charges. Like, I personally believe there's going to be so much more coming out. And it's going to get worse. It's hurting my heart and my guts just saying it. But from the get-go, my instincts, my gut's been telling me, like, there was so much more going on here. And the fact it took this little boy doing this great escape for this all to come to light, you know, it's horrific to think that, but he is the true hero in this, so we got to recognize that.
She says, quote, affects all of us. We're outside Jodi Hildebrandt's house. No activity here. There is a no trespassing sign on the garage door.
Read what it was about, was horrified.
Jamie Levitt is a Southern Utah mom of 4.
I think that's the general consensus in our community. Maybe it's an indication that we need to do more, like looking out for our neighbors and being a little more alert and aware of what's going on.
But after the band played and remarks were given in our interview, she made this observation.
I think Southern Utah, there's a lot of resiliency.
Another person following the case here says beneath the headlines there are, quote, deeper institutional issues.
I want to bring in somebody who knows a lot about this case. Lauren Mathias was a reporter in Southern Utah for 2 years. She knows a lot of the people in the area, very well. She hosts the very popular Hidden True Crime podcast. Lauren, I was reading that Jodi Hildebrandt, Ruby Franke's partner, had a $3 million house. That's where those kids escaped from, was this $3 million house. What do you know about Jodi?
Yes, I know a lot about Jodi. She was well received in the area. She had a booming therapy business and exactly a $3 million home in a very high-end neighborhood. One interesting thing about the house is that it had this downstairs room, which most of the houses in this area, I'll say they're built by the same builder and they do not have basements or.
Yeah, so they purposely dug into the rock to create a basement space too, which is a little alarming. Because that was where they're talking about the panic room where the other child was held, the little sister, when Russell did that great escape, and claps for him. He had reported right away that his sister was there and go save her, go help her, and he led them to the panic room that was under the garage in a basement area. No bail, justice for these poor kids. Yeah, it's all good news, of course. Let me just catch up with you guys. Welcome, Sue. Welcome, Caroline. Welcome, Patriotic is back. Welcome, Amber. Paint a sear on the ground. Yeah. Where's this clip of her getting arrested? You said at the end of LB, there's an LB video. I guess we could definitely check that out. I would like to see that too, to be honest. But here, while I'm looking for that, let me keep the presentation going here. This Hidden True Crime woman, she's been doing a great job covering this as well, and she went to the location and reported at the location, and they've been doing a great coverage of it with her husband, who is, I believe, either a psychiatrist or a psychologist, something like that. He's a doctor. He's got a doctorate in something. So they've been doing great coverage on this as well.
Upstairs rooms, I think that's very interesting. But she was well received in the area. She went to church. She had friends, and she clearly had a booming therapy business. My husband even ran into her at trainings. She was at the chamber meeting. She was at the Women's St. George business meetings. She was active in this community in southern Utah.
I'm trying to figure it all out, though. It's so bizarre, given that they're podcast partners, but they live like 4 to 5 hours drive apart. And the weirdness is that the children are escaping. Well, the one kid is escaping out the window of Jodi's $3 million house, but they're both arrested at Ruby's house. So Jodi's house is in Kayenta, Utah, if I pronounce that correctly, and Ruby's house is in Springville, Utah.
Yeah, so that was one thing that until I had seen this clip, I didn't realize that either. Those kids were tied up in the basement alone. They tied them up, put duct tape on them, and then drove a few hours, 3 hours, back to Ruby's house for who knows why. Who knows what they needed to go all the way back for if they were staying at Jodi's and recording the content there. Why did they leave the kids there tied up, hungry, thirsty, duct tape, tied rope, the whole 9 yards? Why would they leave them there then? Also, that's got to be another charge on top of what was done to them, and then the fact that they left them there and just drove 3 hours, all right, time to go back to my place, and I don't know what they're doing. Who knows? I mean, with all the new details coming out and with the interviews that Carl Crusher has been doing about his alleged experiences with partying and hanging out and doing vlogs and collaborations with a lot of these Mormon vlog families and with her sisters and with that whole sphere in St. George there, he from what he's revealed and what's been going on, in the behind the scenes, it makes you wonder what these two were up to and why in the right mind, not only to tie these poor little kids up and be starving them as a punishment, but to just leave them. What if something had happened? What if a fire started? What if something happened to the house and these kids were trapped and tied up in the basement where nobody could hear them? And that most people, exactly like this woman was just saying, I forget her name, sorry, but Hidden True Crime is what I know her as, on the right side there. She said that it was in a panic room beneath the garage, and that most of the houses out there, because of the rock shield there, that they don't have basements. It's an additional thing that you have to have done to have a basement put in. So if there were people coming to put out a fire or to see if anyone is in the house, if they were in the basement in a panic room, Oh my goodness, it's just making my guts do backflips right now just thinking about it. Like, thank goodness this little boy did this great escape, and not only to save himself and the little sister, but for what all of this has revealed, you know, like busting the dirty boil wide open so we can all see the infection inside. Oh my goodness.
And they're so far apart. Why are the kids...
There was a panic room. The police that had been on the scene had reported that the little boy led them to what looked like a panic room to them. And that's where the little sister was found. I still have the clips for it somewhere. We can even go back and watch if you'd like. If you really aren't sure, I can confirm that their police that were on the scene reported back what they saw. Thank you. Anyways, moving on.
Alone, you know, 4.5 hours away.
I'm so glad you brought this.
4.5 hours. My bad. I said like over 3 hours. 4.5 hours away. They tied them up, put them in the basement, and then drove 4.5 hours away. What if something had happened? Like, what are they talking about? What is wrong with these women? Let them rot until the day they die where they're sitting right now.
Ashley, because I think it's something that people aren't discussing. People forget how big of a state Utah is. So they're not realizing, and it was in Ivins, Utah, the subdivision or the neighborhood is Kayenta, but they escaped a home in Ivins, Utah, in the Kayenta area. And what people aren't realizing is how far away Springville is from Ivins, Utah.
Oh, and by the way, no, there's no video of the arrest. It's just a picture. There's a picture in the video of, like, it's nothing you haven't all seen already. There's like that. There's those couple pictures that went around, but only the one that you could actually see her in cuffs. Okay, well, you can believe what you would like based on all of what's been reported and what the police had said, and if you want to go read the documents and do as close a coverage as I've been doing for the past 2 weeks, and then come back to me, that would be great. But the crossover radio chatter with the dispatch was the police on the scene reporting back what they saw. And whether or not there was a panic room or not, there were children tied up there and left alone while these women drove 4 hours. If you want to sit here and split hairs over things that don't really matter when at the end of the day, regardless, the children were tied up in what was considered a basement room, what may have been described as a panic room by other people, by the other officers on the scene, regardless of the wording, which this is what the Mormons really like to try and catch people on, is the wording of things. And this is how they keep people confused and deluded and confusing the overall understanding within their members too, right? Because, you know, they start zeroing in on facts that don't actually really matter and arguing that to deflect from what actually matters here. And what the point is, they were abusing the children and then left them and drove 4.5 hours out of the way. So, I mean, if it really matters to you to go dig through of exactly what was said by the police on scene and whether they thought it looked like more like a panic room or more just like a cellar space or a basement, maybe it was a crevice, maybe it was like a crawl space, maybe it was like the little thing under the stairs that Harry Potter had to live in. Who cares?
And nobody's understanding that it literally means that these kids were abandoned at this house, because Springville, Utah is northern Utah. We're talking 4 hours north, at least over 300 miles north is where Ruby lived, where both Jodi and Ruby were arrested together at Ruby's house. Jodi's house is 4 hours south in southern Utah among the Red Rocks, and that's where the children escaped. I've also heard that the children didn't even know that they were alone.
Well, there you go. Now it's starting to sound more like a dungeon, like a prison unit, like that she had evolved, where she would keep some of these clients, like how Jesse had been kept out on a balcony and locked in this little room at Jodi's office or whatever, her office in American Fork. So maybe she had leveled it up and put in like a literal cell, like a prison space in the basement under the garage. So whatever you want to call it, if there's a lock on the door, Like, how would we describe that? I mean, an officer maybe is thinking, I don't know, it's kind of like a panic room, but really now it's starting to sound like me. She had upped and evolved how and where she would want to lock people, you know, because we know, I mean, and allegedly, based on what Jesse had said, how they were locked in places and kept out on tight spaces and made to sleep on this balcony that wasn't even large enough for them to stretch out on, right? So perhaps she had gone in the past 10 years and with all the money and support and praise and highly recommendation, allegedly, by the Church of Latter-day Saints, was able to put in a very high-functioning, well-fitted prison cell, okay? So really, if we want to go into semantics, it's just starting to look even worse for the Latter-day Saints overall, because it's funny how, I mean, I don't know what the leaders are doing over there if not supposed to be responsible for the crimes among their members, among their high-profile members, and just the people within their church, from the bottom to the top. They always want to point the fingers like, nope, that wasn't us, we didn't do that, that was this was that, let's point the blame over there. Well, so who's responsible? What's the point of the leadership in the Latter-day Saints Church if all this stuff keeps going on? I started reading about the adoption schemes. I've started reading about the stuff to do with the Boy Scouts. I'm reading about the FLDS stuff, which they want to act like that has nothing to do with them, but it's just the fundamental teachings. The most devout people are the polygamists in the mountains marrying children, okay, of the Latter-day Saints Church, but they want to act like, oh no, that's not us. We broke off from them years ago. That's not us. Same as the way that the sisters, Ruby's sisters, that's what their statements basically were to do with Ruby. Oh no, that wasn't us. That's nothing to do with us. We broke off from them years ago. That doesn't happen here. Okay, so are we going to actually look at the problems, or are we going to keep pointing the fingers and pointing the blame? We've got them denouncing Tim Ballard for his work with the Sound of Freedom movie, exposing all the child trafficking and the crimes against children within the Latter-day Saints Church. You know, in every way, they're like, nope, that member's nothing to do with us. No, they're not to do with us, even though they're a high-profile, upstanding member of their society, their community, their church. So who's going to take responsibility? Let's talk about it.
You know, but they were abandoned. And I think that's something we're not talking about enough. These children were alone.
It's so bizarre. I mean, clearly we're only at the tip of the iceberg on the story. Lauren Mathias, thank you for this. Thanks for being with me on Friday night. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Ashley.
New late this week, prosecutors are now asking for medical records for the two children at the center of this case.
Daniel Woodruff is joining us live with the very latest today. So, Daniel, what does this subpoena say?
Well, it says that prosecutors want those medical records for the 12-year-old boy and 10-year-old girl who they say are victims of child abuse. Prosecutors have filed this subpoena with the court, but at last check, a judge had not yet signed it. Now, the subpoena says that they want the St. George Regional Medical Center to provide those medical records belonging to the two children dated on or about August 30th within the next 10 days. In the subpoena, prosecutors say that information is relevant and necessary for a criminal investigation.
Which I'm wondering, too, if this is some of the new evidence, the copious amounts of new evidence that they're reporting has come up now in the past couple weeks of investigation, and this is part of why the hearing today has been stayed, I'm guessing, till on or at least October 5th, because they had requested medical records, too. So if there was anything that had happened that didn't end up public, that they didn't end up recording or, you know what I mean? But yeah, if they had any broken bones, or if they had any, head injuries or anything that could have that can indicate that they were being physically abused, this is stuff that they've been reviewing over the past while as well. So, I mean, Kevin may end up being a little more of a perpetrator in this than a victim, but I think we're still kind of on the fence with that due to the fact that the level of narcissistic abuse that has happened to Jodi's former clients, as far as Ruby's family has reported, and pardon, what we can recognize as clear narcissistic and sadistic tendencies, like she getting a thrill tormenting these kids for the audience, for the YouTube audience. So I think, there may be more to it. I don't think I'm going to let Kevin off the hook here just yet, because there might still be a lot more coming out here. But, yeah, Yeah, I mean, either way, they're going to sit there. They're going to have to keep sitting there thinking about what they did. You know, hopefully getting a lot of what she was doing to the kids. I think, you know, the people in the prison there, people don't take kindly to people that harm kids in prison. So hopefully they're aware of her practices, you know, and I don't want anyone to suffer. I don't wish suffering upon anyone. I hope for them to get exactly what they deserve. But I hope that they're aware of her and her crimes and the type of punishments, and that they're giving her a bit of a hard time, giving her a bit of a taste of her own medicine, because I think that's probably what she deserves, you know?
Meanwhile, both Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt are due back in court on Monday in St. George for a status review, but the court tells us a key question there that day will be a discussion about bail. A public safety assessment recommends that Franke be released from jail with conditions while the case proceeds, but there was no such assessment filed for Hildebrandt. Separately, there is also on Monday a child welfare hearing for Ruby Franke and her husband Kevin. That's set for here in Utah County to take place in juvenile court.
For now they were, like up until now they were, but I'm wondering now if they're going to end up having to be there for another like a month. They're probably going to end up getting put into Gen Pop. You know, I really hope they do, but it's hard to say because over there, like, the whole Mormon community is really tight-knit, and it's like there's not much separation between church and state. Like, a lot of these people, a lot of these judges, lawyers, law enforcement, all these people are Mormons, and they all go to church together. They'll all go and have, you know, Sunday brunch together and whatever, watch the Super Bowl and crap together. So I think they're also having trouble finding a judge and jury that can, you know, be neutral to the whole matter as well. I think there's, you know, I guess it's going to be the same judge. I don't know yet. They haven't really posted the details of the next hearing, but it will be on at least on or after October 5th. So, and I don't know what's happening with the trial thing here today. I'm still in the room, and it's just still saying the webcast hasn't started yet. So I'm still going to be sitting here and keeping an eye on that to see what does come up for today, because although they have stayed the bail portion of the hearing, there is supposed to be a custody or some other hearing also today. So if or whether or not that's going to be occurring on this same webcast or not, I can't confirm, but I'm going to keep sitting like I did last time, where a lot of people were getting bumped and a lot of people weren't able to get into the trial last time, and I kind of just sat and waited, and I'm going to just do the same thing as before, because if anything's going to begin and happen here, I do want to be able to report it back to you guys in real time. Yeah, I hope they're in a good home for now, too, because that's the other thing. Like, the foster care system is really messed up, too, right? Like, the group homes and, you know, all of that, but not, like, being able to find safe members of the family that they can stay with at the moment, due to the whole situation, it's complicated, you know? But I was reading into, like, that Turpin case. Some people had mentioned the Turpin case through my coverage of this in the past couple weeks here, and I was reading into that, and apparently afterwards, once these children were rescued, this young woman, or young girl, 17, almost a woman, not quite, just a kid still, though, in every other way because of how they were treated and how they were kept, they escaped and then had all their siblings rescued, but a lot of the siblings ended up in care where they were then also abused and taken advantage of due to their naivety and due to them being so traumatized and altered by their complex upbringing and their traumatic upbringing. So that would be my next concern is you know, is anybody checking on them that gives a shit about them? You know what I mean? Like, the sisters were like, oh yeah, we haven't seen them in years. I don't know. It was on Kevin, but then Kevin hasn't been in contact or talking to them since at least June of this year. Right? So who was looking out for the kids? Who is going to be there that's checking on them? Like, I'm hoping Sherry and Chad have stepped up and are checking on them and making frequent visits with them and staying in touch and making sure that everything, you know, to do with where they are now is being looked closely at. Because the last thing they need, you know, and that's kind of what ends up happening, though, like when kids have already been traumatized and kids are already in such a way and have been isolated from society in such a way, it makes them very vulnerable targets on the other side, you know, and we know that there's a lot of people, a lot of evil operating under the guise of good, like the Latter-day Saints Church, for example, you know, and I've been looking into some of these missions, you know, with regards to some of these adoption schemes, and it's basically like they got people running baby mills to adopt them into Mormon families, right? So, And then the church doesn't want to take any responsibility for that either, but it was a high-ranking member of their society and their church and whatever that it was running that scheme, and then giving the babies to the Mormons, right? Allegedly. I don't know. I think that's still going through trial as well, but we kind of looked at that and looked at some of the articles of that in one of the last streams. But anyways, like, who's going to take responsibility here, and who's going to start looking at stuff a little more closely? And that's the thing with this case too. Like, if some of the things Ruby said was true on one hand, and then just in general, if there was this severe punishment situation needing to happen for whatever reason that Ruby and Jodi felt, the bishops would have known about it. Like, from what I'm now understanding with the culture, like, there's a lot of interaction with the bishop when it comes to punishment and when it comes to guidance with how to handle certain situations, right? So they got their hands right in everything, but when it comes to actually taking responsibility for the outcome of those choices and actions, everybody wants to throw their hands in the air and act like they don't know. I don't know. I wasn't there. I had nothing to do with it. It wasn't my responsibility. I don't know. So whose was it, right? Should we ask the Sky Daddy who it was? Get on our knees and ask the Sky Daddy who's responsible for protecting these little kids.
Now, we'll talk more about what we will expect on Monday with this next hearing in St. George involving Hildebrandt and Franke. That story coming up on 2 News at 5. Live in Utah County, Daniel Woodruff, KUTV 2 News.
We have new developments tonight. Records obtained by the KSL investigator showed Jodi Hildebrandt's niece reported the licensed mental health counselor to police for mistreatment while in her care.
Hildebrandt and former 8-passenger YouTuber Ruby Franke are in custody tonight, facing several charges of aggravated child abuse. KSL investigator Daniela Rivera join us right now with what these latest documents reveal. Danny?
Well, Mike and Deanie, these are American Fork Police records from 2010. We now know more than 13 years ago, Hildebrandt's niece reported questionable counseling methods to police, and Hildebrandt continued to practice for years.
Yeah, we're not sure what's happening with the case. The bail portion of the hearing has been stayed till on at least October 5th or afterwards. So they're going to be sitting in prison either way until then. So that portion of the hearing has been canceled, but I'm still in the room and it's saying the webcast hasn't started yet, and there is supposed to still be like a custody portion of the hearing. And we do know that Ruby had come out and said some outrageous things during the last custody hearing. So I think it might be important for me to stay in there and just see what happens, and listen to anything that does end up coming up with this direct connection. This is the direct link to the webcast, which we did need to register and get approval this time around. So this is that direct link, and it still seems like we're in there, and that it just says the webcast hasn't started yet. So it's saying it'll be 1 p.m. Utah time, Mountain Time, which would be, I guess, about yeah, but then on the site it says 11, so I think actually that'll be 1 p.m. my time, sorry. So 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 11 a.m. Utah time, I believe. I don't know. I'm not even sure now, but I'm in the webcast. It's saying it hasn't started yet. I'm keeping an eye on it. It was kind of the same as last time. It didn't seem like things were happening, and then it came on, but then people thought they were getting kicked, and they were going in and out and getting bumped, and I just sat and waited, and we were able to get through and be in that virtual court hearing the last time where a lot of people weren't able to. So I'm going to just do it the same way I did before, and we'll wait and see what happens. With regards to the custody hearing, if we do end up being able to hear that or not, I'm going to keep an eye on whatever other news is coming out in between. We do know now that there has been copious amounts of new evidence surfacing, which I'm guessing has resulted from their investigation and from the Springville home, from Jodi's home in Ivins. I'm guessing they seized the computers and hard drives and all their devices and started searching through that, because we do know that she was way worse off camera. You know, like, this was just what she thought was acceptable to post and put online is what we've seen, which is bad enough as it is, right? So beyond that, we know that there's probably more. She even mentions it on camera, like the camera helps keep her in check or whatever, and that she refers to yelling and different types of emotional violence that happens when the camera's off. Like, she had turned the camera on and was talking to her one daughter about giving a tongue lashing that's not to be repeated, not to be recorded, but that she took her tongue lashing very well. And that's her words, not mine. Tongue lashing, I think that's gross. That's a gross way of even saying it. Like, she just berated her, belittled her, degraded her, yelled in her face, treated her like an animal for however long, and then recorded it and put her to shame for the world to see. So I'm sure there was more content and more full video evidence that they were able to collect. And even it could be even worse than we think it is in other ways too. Like, my gut's been telling me something from the start, and that, like, obviously, I mean, for what it's one reason to, I guess, to evade the punishment, trying to evade the punishment of her punishing the kids by throwing them under the bus at the last custody hearing with her heinous allegations. But it could also be because they were going to find something in the house. They were going to find something on the hard drives, and they were trying to point fingers at the kids right away. So there might have been even worse things going on with these poor little kids at Jodi's, which there was, apparently there was other kids there too that weren't Rubies that have been more minimized in the news because their identity can be protected because they weren't public figures. But I fear in my heart and soul that there was so much worse things going on here. And in my guts, I felt it even before Ruby had come out and made these allegations against the children. So, I mean, I hope not. I really hope to goodness that's not the case. But I feel like there was something even worse going on here. And for it being at Jodi's for whatever reason, and which is up in the mountains, out in the middle, pretty much nowhere, you know, and having that space in a basement space, crawl space, panic room, whatever you want to call it, whatever, doesn't matter exactly what it was, but this space underneath with locks and presumably enough that probably can't hear screaming and yelling from down in there. I'm guessing. I don't know for sure. This is only speculation based on what we know as fact. But oh man, if there is copious, if her lawyer, Ruby's lawyer, has reported back copious amounts of evidence, which I'm trying to find the articles here. I'm trying to find whatever other new news is coming out, but I think everybody's kind of scrambling with the change of the hearing today and trying to rejigger how they're going to do their reporting on it today. But we're here for it in real time, live. We're keeping an eye on everything. I'll be reporting to you anything that comes up here. If something does come of this hearing, which it's still saying webcast hasn't started, so I'm assuming there's still going to be something happening here, so I'm going to stick with it. But, yeah, we're going to keep our eyes on this. We want to keep our thumb on the jugular. We want to keep the pressure on to have justice served for all of the alleged victims involved in this, because this is much bigger than just this 8 passengers Ruby Franke thing, right? We all know that by now, and if you don't, you're about to find out, because we're going to keep going through the presentation and wait and see what's happening, and I'll keep reporting on it live, and we're just going to stick to it today and just, see what comes up as we go along here.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help.
Long before police say a child escaped from Jodi Hildebrandt's Ivins home on August 30th, the licensed mental health counselor's niece was in Hildebrandt's care. In March 2010, the juvenile left Hildebrandt's home in American Fork and asked police for information about a safe house. According to this police report from that incident, the teen told police Hildebrandt was mean, very strict, had called them a liar, and told them they were going to be a cheap hooker one day.
And you see how, like, the cops kind of picked out what they wanted to report on this? I just want to step in on this quick. How they had reported what Jesse was telling them back in 2010 made it just sound like this bratty, out-of-control teenager that's not conforming, right? But little did they know, like, and I'm sure Jesse had been trying to say it and try to tell them, but as soon as they started hearing, like, oh, it's just some religious kid that's not listening and they don't want to have to repent for their sins and da-da-da-da. Because again, like I was saying earlier, a lot of these people in the law enforcement and all throughout the community, they're all Mormons, right? So they're like, yeah, you just go back to where you come from. You go take your punishment because you obviously need it, right? But now we know that's a whole nother thing. So, like, they have, like, the entire whole thing needs to be looked at, and how they're handling cases and how they're making personal presumptions based on their faith, based on whatever, the people they know in their community, based on their own personal judgments because of their religion, their faith, whatever, you know? My goodness.
forced them to sleep in a sleeping bag outside of the home, only allowed them to shower for 7 minutes at a time, and at one point placed duct tape over their mouth. Hildebrandt's niece also told police they had been wearing the same clothes for weeks and were not enrolled in school, calling this Jodi's methods of counseling. The teen's father told police this was a ploy to get out of going to a wilderness program. The responding officer wrote at the end of the report, "I am requesting a copy of this report be forwarded to DCFS." 2 weeks later, Hildebrandt reported to police her niece had run away. She said she believed this was to avoid being placed in a girl's home. According to the report, police learned the teen had previously sent a message to a friend that said, "Dude, save me, I'm trapped." Weeks later, police found the teen staying at a local shelter. The teen told police they ran away from Hildebrandt because she made them confess sins and tried to break them down. Hildebrandt went on to practice as a mental health counselor for more than 13 years before her recent arrest on charges of aggravated child abuse.
I spoke with American Fork Police Chief Cameron Paul this afternoon. He said they checked and they have no record of following through with those plans to send their report to DCFS. He said today he wishes the department had dug a little deeper into what the teen was telling officers at the time back in 2010. Mike and Deanie.
We're also hearing from another former client who says this is just the beginning.
He believes a lot more former clients will come forward with their stories of both shame and isolation.
Okay, I think there is an update here, guys. Just give me 1 second. There's apparently Kevin Franke's lawyer had made a statement outside of the courtroom, so I'm gonna just check that real quick. I'm gonna try and find the full version. I found it it's short. Somebody did like a regular little vertical video of it. 1 second here. So we're gonna bring that up and we're gonna see what he had to say in the matter.
Yeah, Paul Nelson tells us more about this part of the story. Paul?
Well, I am also right outside the Division of Professional Licensing. We'll explain why in just a little bit. However, the former client that we spoke with, his name is Trey Warner, and he says that Jodi Hildebrandt was really good at using shaming tactics to pit husband and wives against each other. And he also says that she was very good at convincing people that they were dangerous for other people to be around. The angry comments coming into the Connections Classroom social media pages now are just the beginning, according to former client Trey Warner. He joined a support group at the recommendation of a friend trying to improve his marriage. But after a while, he says he grew more suspicious of what Jodi Hildebrandt was teaching.
Okay, I found it. I guess it is just the short here. It's just the vertical video loaded up. 1 second, I'm going to pull it into the stream so you guys can see. And I'm going to keep finding, see if I could find any better footage of this or a better reporting on this. Because obviously this isn't what we would hope for, but that's okay. I'm going to check around on the other news sources and everything too. We're just going to keep our eye on everything, and I'll keep you updated on the latest, and we'll see if there's anything else we can gather here while we have you all here today, because we had all hoped for, I guess, something today, you know. We hoped we'd get something happening, but I mean, either way, as long as they have to stay in there, that's the main thing, I think. But what we wanted to hear, though, was that they're going to be staying in there until the actual trial begins, which is probably going to be a while from now, due to all this new evidence coming forward, right? So, 1 second, folks. Let me get this going here. Okay. Let me move this down a little bit here. Let's see what he has to say here. I'm going to try and find better coverage of this, but I think everybody, like I said, is kind of scrambling to figure out what to do here and how to cover it. Oh, and it's super quiet, of course. Okay, hold on. Let me see what we can do to improve that for you guys. So freaking quiet. 1 second. I'm gonna see if I can amp it on this end too. 1 sec. Oh, I guess that's as loud as it's gonna go. So turn your stuff up, and then I'll give you the warning when to turn it down again.
Kids back where they should be. They need to be with a family member, preferably Kevin, and that's what our goal is. We're working hard. Kevin and I to convince the state that he's an incredible father, as he was before all this happened, and they became separated. But in the meantime, he's just working hard on getting himself back in position to be able to take these kids and raise them as a good father would. You know what? As to the adults, I don't think anybody cares. But as to the kids, I absolutely think these kids have been through a lot, and to have all this media exposure to them individually as little kids who have been manipulated, I think it's better.
Okay. So I guess turn the volume down again, guys. I guess they're trying to say that Kevin wants custody and that's the best for them, but I mean, I think there's still a lot to consider. There's a lot that still needs to be investigated. You know, I don't know if they should make a rash decision just yet with regards to the custody portion. I don't know if that's still going to happen, if that's just the pre-custody hearing or if the hearing already happened. This is still saying webcast hasn't started yet, so I don't know. I'm going to keep an eye on it. I don't know. It maybe is not going to happen. It's maybe already happened all ahead of the game without us. And because of how crazy it was there at that first hearing, everybody was like acting crazy in the chat and, you know, putting their cameras on and their mic and acting crazy, saying crazy stuff in the courtroom, which it is a virtual court, but it's still a court of law. So I think they were kind of trying to evade any craziness happening again, and with people showing up at the courthouse and just everything in between, was kind of a crazy situation the last time. So I don't really blame them for kind of trying to sidestep this time and get it done and over with in a way that was best for not only the children but for, you know, the due process in this case. So I mean, it is what it is, and like I said, as long as they have to sit in there and they're stuck where they are until it's figured out, then it doesn't really matter how long it takes. And if it's between now and that in October 5th, and then from then until the actual trial happens, either way, I mean, that's what we're hoping for. So we have, I guess KUTV News had done a live stream on it, so I'm gonna see what else they've got here, portions of it you might want to hear. A lot of it's just sitting and waiting and pointing at the door, and there's not really much going on. So let me get to parts that might matter to us. And they've been doing some great coverage as well. The KUTV News Salt Lake City. What's the guy's name that's been following it really closely? I'm not exactly sure his name. There's a lot of people involved in this case, and I've only been really paying attention to the ones that matter here, obviously. But the reporter at KUTV 2 News that's been following this and staying on top of doing the interviews with, you know, the past alleged victims of Jodi's and everything too. He's been doing a really great job, so definitely check out their coverage over there. Okay, so let's see. I'm gonna see what they had to say on the matters. And this might be where we can get a better, clearer interview from Kevin's attorney. So hold the phone, folks. Stay tuned.
Started to feel more and more evil. And I finally, in one of the group meetings, I got up and I just said, this is off.
Warner claims Hildebrandt would use shaming tactics to turn husbands and wives against each other, adding that she would convince men that their impure thoughts made them dangerous to their families. He says he saw one case during a group session.
There was a man that had a successful business that believed that he was a danger to his wife and his family because he did a double take. As a woman, like if he saw a beautiful woman, he would see and he'd look again. This guy got his own apartment and separated from his family because he was a danger.
In some cases, Warner claims husbands were separated from their families for so long, they were considering suicide.
They felt so sick and like such a failure that they just felt like they shouldn't be here anymore.
The self-help videos on the Connections Classroom website have been removed by YouTube. The Division of Professional Licensing has an open case against Hildebrandt, and her license is active. However, Division Director Mark Franke says they are allowed to revoke a therapist's license if they believe harm is imminent.
Our harm would not just be physical harm, especially in mental health therapy.
Steinigel says the investigation process can sometimes be a lengthy one.
How can you assure the public that when a complaint comes in,
it isn't just brushed aside.
Yeah. I wish that I could help each member of the public to watch my team when they receive a complaint.
Mic check 1, 2, 3. The hearing happened here at the 4th District Juvenile Court. The cameras weren't allowed inside, but we did get some video of some of the key players in this case. Take a look here. Kevin Franke and his lawyer arrived just before 8:30 this morning. His oldest daughter was also there. She arrived separately from Kevin. Ruby was called in remotely. This is a child welfare hearing. It's to determine whether a child is safe. It's not to prosecute parents or guardians. Now, this case involves sensitive information in children, and one of those things that was discussed is whether to close the case to the public or not. The judge said she understands that this case has widespread interest and she wants the court to be transparent. A decision wasn't made yet. So there will be another pre-trial date. Those dates are on October 17th. And then before that, a mediation is set for the 11th. In Provo, I'm Krista McPeak, KUTV 2 News.
Okay, so that's all right then. I mean, I guess that because it is such a, like, there's so much going on here with it. There's so much of a, like, it's such a serious, complex case, you know, and it's, when we're talking about complex trauma here, we're talking about, like, so many different levels of psychological warfare and emotional violence and just, you know, the narcissistic abuse factors, like that it creates such a more complex situation overall, you know. And with her coming out and saying what she said about the kids at the last custody hearing, I can see why they may have wanted to keep it private from the public, like, because, you know, like I was just saying before, a jury of your peers carries a lot of weight, you know, and by her just saying that in the public space, in a public sphere, that's something that could damage those people involved for the rest of their lives. Those children that at some point will be adults, it could be damaging for the rest of their life, right? So if there's a threat that she's going to keep making these crazy allegations or putting them under the bus in any more ways, like, I think at the end of the day, the primary directive here is to protect the kids. I guess the judge is saying they do want to be transparent with the public, and because, again, the jury of your peers carries a lot of weight, and you know, us having our thumb on the jugular here and putting pressure on pursuing the justice for all of the alleged victims involved matters too, right? So I guess, you know, I get why it's taken so much time for them to decide what to do about it, and they were saying till at least the 5th, but I guess it'll be the 17th. I'll go back again. The 17th is the next actual hearing. October 17th, and then I guess there's another mediation on October 11th. So we'll keep our eye on that, and I'll be here on October 17th to do the live coverage and relay everything back to you guys. But let's see what else she had to say, and if hopefully they ended up having a little interview with the lawyer that we can hear better anyways, because that was really hard to hear on that short. Okay, that might be it for now. Let's see, circle through and just see what else we got, because they just pretty much sat the camera there and watched people come in and out for a large portion of it, which, as being a news team, I can't see why they couldn't be improvising the coverage and talking about the case and keeping people up to date and doing some kind of news thing like we're doing here during this, rather than just sitting the camera on the ground here like, okay, our work here is done, whatever, and she goes back to being on her phone. We need more people that actually care about the case too, I think, being on these things and on these excursions, because I think some people are just like, it's just their job, you know, they're just reporting on doing their job. It's the same as any other day for them. But for some people, they feel pretty passionate about this case and are, you know, very closely involved with it for a reason. You know, it's something that's touching on their inner child wounds, or it's just the fact that, you know, they feel passionately that we should be protecting the children and save the children, you know, because that's who matters the most in this world. They are our future.
Actually, maybe, yeah, I'll just...
Here, yeah, so they realize they shouldn't just be standing there doing nothing also. Great. Good.
I guess we'll do both angles just to make sure we have it. Yeah, go for it. Just to be
safe. Be two birds with one stone. Actually, maybe, yeah, I'll just let you do it and I'll focus on the questions. Let's get into it. Sorry.
HW, are you causing problems in the chat? Not everybody understands where you're coming from sometimes, and in the comments and stuff. I know you. I think you mean well. I believe that you mean well. So you just be behaving yourself. And welcome new folks. Welcome Boo Swanger. Oh, Joe Davis is back. Welcome Katie. Welcome Language of Horses. Welcome. Who else we got in here? Kieran. Welcome folks tuning in with us fresh here. Rocky. Thanks for sticking with us and bearing with us while we improvise the coverage on this here today. For those of you who don't know already, the hearing has been stayed. The bail hearing has been stayed till October 17th. And there will be a mediation on October 11th. The custody hearing today, Kevin is seeking custody of the children, but I think there is still a lot to be considered and a lot still yet to be investigated regarding this case before anything's decided about where the children should be. They apparently have found there's copious amounts of new evidence coming out, which is part of the reason why they're going to be waiting for this bail hearing to be decided whether they're going to be kept until the actual trial or not. But yeah, so that's where we're at. This is some of the live coverage that KUTV2 News did on it, but they weren't allowed in the courtroom. They weren't allowed inside. But I'm hoping that we're going to be able to get to a portion where they have an interview with the lawyer, Kevin's lawyer. We did find a little clip on that of him out front of the courthouse, but it might have been before the hearing, so I'm not sure. We're going to keep our eyes on it. We'll see what's being reported as we go here. Any new news that comes out, I'm going to let you guys know. I'm not sure with the custody hearing if it is still going to happen and if it's going to be on this webcast or not. As far as I know, I'm still in here, and it's still saying the webcast just hasn't started yet, and by my time, it would be in a few minutes. So I'm going to keep an eye on that, if that is going to end up being the custody hearing or not. I'm not sure. But the last time, all I did was sit and wait and let it do what it needed to do, and I was able to make my way into the virtual court hearing the last time, where a lot of people weren't able to. So I'm just going to leave it and just keep an eye on it. We'll keep an eye on the news in the rest of the sphere here. And yeah, just stay tuned. We'll see what else comes of this for today. Okay, so I think this is his lawyer about to come out. So maybe the custody hearing did come, and this webcast is going to do nothing for us. But I don't know. We're just we're here for the ride to see what's coming out as it evolves here. Reporting in real time. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I'm changing my mind on how I feel about this lawyer. At first, I wasn't sure how to feel about him, but he's a good dude. He's, like, looking out for Kevin, and I do think in some aspects that Kevin may also be a bit of a victim in this situation, due to Ruby's extreme narcissistic, sadistic tendencies that we know have played out just within the children, on the children, and then what we've heard about what some of the behind-the-scenes stuff from Carl Crusher, with regards to these Mormon vlogging channels that her sisters, Ruby herself, they had done. Carl had worked with a lot of these channels a few years ago and had been involved in doing collabs and going to parties together and stuff, and so he revealed a lot of things that may or may not have given us insight about what was going on within Kevin and Ruby's marriage. And just from what he said, I'm sure there was some trouble there, and I mean, there was a reason they had sought therapy, you know what I mean? So I don't know. Still, I'm still on the fence about Kevin, but I'm not letting him off the hook. There is still a lot more evidence coming up, apparently, so we're just going to keep our eye on it, and either way, we're keeping our thumb on the jugular of this whole situation, because either way, we just want to make sure justice is served for all the alleged victims involved, and that we all learn from this, because we do need to learn to be a lot more proactive as a society rather than reactive, and waiting till kids are harmed to do something about it. It's kind of weird that they're like hounding him right here, Like, that seems kind of disrespectful. Like, let Kevin get to his vehicle and out of the way and then talk to the lawyer. Like, give them some space. This is obviously a really troubling situation for the entire family, regardless of what went down or how much Kevin's was involved before the past 13 months or not. You know, I think it's like just for the sake of the content, you know, in some ways. And I think there needs to be a lot more of a balance. Like, we definitely need to have a certain etiquette, I think, that needs to start being expected by some of these news people, you know? Like, chasing him up the stairs, like, give him a minute. Like, just let Kevin walk away, and then the lawyer agreed to speak to you. So then this, like, one girl's, like, running to get ahead. Like, what is going on with these folks, man? I guess their bosses and people and, you know, the higher-up executives are, like, push, and drive them to do what they gotta do, right? But, my goodness. We know it's Kevin. We can see it's Kevin. Oh, thank goodness they let him walk by himself.
Yeah, thank
My
you.
goodness. That was getting a little disturbing. Whew. Okay, anyways, here we go.
The case is for your client and all the wrangling.
Just what the court said. We're just, as we said in the beginning, we're just working toward trying to get this family healed and get these kids back where they should be. They need to be with a family member, preferably Kevin, and that's what our goal is. We're working hard, Kevin and I, to convince the state that he's an incredible father, as he was before all this happened, and they became separated, but in the meantime...
I mean, I think that's still yet to be determined, but, yeah, like I said, I think there's still so much more investigation that needs to happen before custody is decided at all. But either way, I think with the mediation not happening till October 11th, that means they're still going to be investigating between now and then at that point, they're going to start looking at where and what the custody situation should look like. And then the next bail hearing will be on October 17th, so stay tuned on that. I'm going to set up a new event for that too, so that we can all be here for that and doing the live coverage of that once again. Did I not put a no on the poll? Oh, yes, there is a no. There's a no on the poll. What are you talking about? That's a hard no on your poll. Oh, I should have closed the other poll. I guess I did. Yeah, okay. Yeah. There should be a hard no on the poll. Well, you know, it's everybody's up to their own opinion, and I think there's still a lot to be revealed, a lot more evidence coming out. So there may be new charges laid, and Kevin might be involved in that. We don't know just yet. So, because there is a lot more that went on behind the scenes than what was clipped and put into videos for us to see publicly. And if what we were seeing publicly was bad enough, I mean, we can only just imagine.
He's just working hard on getting himself back in position to be able to take these kids and raise them as a good father would.
Would you prefer this case be closed to the public?
You know what? As to the adults, I don't think anybody cares. But as to the kids, I absolutely think these kids have been through a lot, and to have all this media exposure to them individually as little kids who have been manipulated, I think it's better held privately.
What does it mean to you if the eldest daughter was in attendance today?
I think she has a right to be there. I don't know what the court will ultimately determine about that, but I think she has a right to be a part of these proceedings. She's part of the family.
Do you have any comments about the last child welfare hearing?
I can't talk about that. We went into a lot of detail and a lot of things about the kids that just shouldn't be disclosed.
How long have they been separated?
Kevin and Ruby were separated, well, now for 14 months. 13 months when this all kind of raised its ugly head, and then another month since then, so 14.
Okay, so they have put out the, I will check this out here about the copious amounts of evidence, an article regarding that, so I'm going to bring that in here for us here. It's been postponed. Copious additional time needed to review the copious amounts of discovery. The reason for the delay, initially scheduled for 11 a.m. today, was postponed after attorneys filed a stipulated motion to continue the review hearing until after October 5th. Was previously confirmed the 5th District Court in St. George would discuss whether the two women would be allowed out on bail in this hearing. But obviously there's, I guess that didn't really give us too much more new news to what we already knew, but that's okay. We want to just confirm that it's what's being reported officially. We want to keep it factual and objective here, of course. But we'll continue here with what Randy Kester has to say, Kevin Franke's lawyer, regarding the custody.
18 months.
Is there a possibility that if the case were sealed to the public that Sherry would still have access to it, or would she also be barred?
That's up to the judge.
So, but it could happen.
It could happen either way. Yep. That's just totally up to the judge. But it is her family, so.
I hope that Sherry is being as involved in this as possible, because she was basically like the stand-in mother. Like, she had to be. Like, Ruby is running around punishing the kids all the time, getting in their face, recording, editing, doing the whole YouTube thing. So Sherry was basically the mother, right? And then basically right after she left, like, she came out and started talking about this April of this year. And then it was May, June, July. Actually, if you go on Spotify still has the Connections podcast up. So if you go on there, you can see when Ruby started being involved in the podcast and the frequency of it. So you can see she was kind of just going out on weekends to do the podcasts with Jodi, and then you can see when she started being there regularly. They started posting a ton of content through like July, August more so. So we know that for about 2 months the kids were there. She was there with doing these podcasts with Jodi on the regular. And, you know, so just that alone gives us some more information. And then it also is the evidence of those podcasts, where some of the content of those podcasts on its own about her thoughts and feelings about parenting and what she'd been peddling to the public this whole time with regards to their shining example, their gold standard of parenting and professionalism, like Jodi, the therapist, helping people with their marriages and raising their kids. Meanwhile, her 2-year divorce, or her 2-year marriage, ended in a crazy, hellish divorce for this man. She dragged it out for 10 years, led to the being estranged from her children. Her children want nothing to do with Jodi, but she's out here being allegedly highly recommended and praised by the Latter-day Saints Church, and being funded, allegedly, by them to the less fortunate members within the church, and recommended. And they go to this Jodi woman and receive whatever her therapeutic practice, whatever you want to call it, her idea of therapeutic practice, and then the church is paying for it, and she's destroying lives. She's just been destroying lives for over a decade, and nobody did nothing about it. None of the victims were able to open a case against her or do anything about it. And then she gets in a partnership with this Ruby woman, who is also very sadistic, narcissistic, you know. Like, these are not the shining examples, but if this is what people in the community, in the church, and in their society are looking at and thinking, like, that's, you know, goals. That's what I want my family to be like and look like. Like, we need to stop looking on the outside surface. We stop looking at the wrapping paper and the ribbons and the bows, because there might be a severed head in the box. You know what I mean? Like, there might be shit in the box. There might be garbage in the box. There could be something completely unexpected within the box that's wrapped up in nice, fancy, expensive wrapping paper, and then a box within a box for some reason, and, you know, the bows and the bells and the ribbons and the whistles and the razzle-dazzle. We need to stop looking on the outside surface and thinking, oh, you know, that's so nice. You know, there could be so much darkness happening behind doors where happy little wreaths are hung, okay? So this is what we really can be learning from this. And not only that, but then the early warning signs and how we can better identify and detect them so that we can be more proactive as a society rather than reactive.
Okay. Thanks, Randy. Good to see you again.
Okay. So I guess that was that with that. So we'll get back to just the this other part of the presentation I had set up for you guys. Maybe, I don't know, maybe we take 5 here? It's been about an hour. No, I think we're all still good. We're still good to go. We'll keep her going here.
Now, we did actually reach out to Jodi Hildebrandt's attorney. We asked them for any kind of comment about these accusations, and those requests have not been returned yet. Reporting live, Paul Nelson, KUTV 2 News.
We're following new developments in the case of 2 YouTubers accused of child abuse. A new subpoena seeks information about the victims in this case. Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt were arrested August 31st after police say 2 of Franke's children were found malnourished and with deep cuts from being tied up.
I mean, we could go into a straight deep dive. I had an after show type portion of a presentation planned, and and then just the portion for this part of it, for the hearing part of it. So at some point here, we're going to shift into that. But I mean, if you guys want to jump ahead to that, maybe we'll set up a poll for that and see and let you guys decide. Because basically what would happen is I would end this segment and then it would shift you guys over to the next like after show segment. And then I've got a ton of stuff more on just the Latter-day Saints Church in general and their crimes against children, their crimes against, people in third world countries. Taking advantage of these missions to have their own personal nefarious agenda, allegedly. We've got all kinds of stuff to do with the leaders of the fundamentalist sect of the Latter-day Saints Church that the LDS, the Mormons of the Latter-day Saints Church want to pretend like they have nothing to do with them. But as I've been digging in and understanding their belief system a little better, they have what's called the three kingdoms of glory, and the third top celestial kingdom is basically the most devout, which that is what describes their fundamentalist group. So the peak of their religion is the fundamentalists, and then there's the Mormons that are just the Latter-day Saints. And they want to pretend like they have nothing to do with each other. They also want to pretend they have nothing to do with the Boy Scouts crimes against children. They also want to pretend they have nothing to do with the child marriages and all of that stuff to do with against children. There's all kinds of stuff that's come out over the years with regards to just the Latter-day Saints Church as a whole, and they want to pretend it's all separate, and most of the world that lives outside of these regions and these bubbles doesn't realize how interconnected it all is, and that's something I do want to highlight as I'm covering this case as well. So we can still run through some more of this presentation here, make sure everybody's on the same page with regards to this specific case and the Ruby Franke, Jodi Hildebrandt situation, but I do want to dive deeper into that at some point. So actually, maybe I'll finish this first portion here is all the latest stuff, the latest news, the latest to catch everybody up for before the hearing here. So we'll finish going through that at least, and then I think we'll jump over a little sooner than what we would have previously planned, since we already know what the outcome of the hearing was, and I'll just be keeping up with whatever the news is in between as we go.
Last Friday, both women appeared in court virtually for the first time, and this week we spoke to several family members and past clients. On Monday, the two are scheduled for another court hearing in St. George. And new late this week, prosecutors are now asking for medical records for the two children at the center of this case. Daniel Woodruff is joining us live with the latest. And Daniel, what does that subpoena say?
Well, Jamie, it basically says that prosecutors want medical records for the 12-year-old boy and the 10-year-old girl of Ruby Franke, who prosecutors say were victims of child abuse.
Well, and we don't know either what might have come up just in that couple of months that we can assume that Ruby had already started staying with Jodi in that time span. Like I was saying, that those connections videos that they were doing started being a lot more frequently in August, July and August. There may have been injuries and other things that had happened in that time that nobody would have known about, that hadn't been reported, but that obviously their medical records would reflect. So, I mean, just in that portion of time, there may have been so much more going on there, and there may be new charges laid between now and October 17th on their next bail hearing. So I think definitely we want to keep our eyes on this, and yeah, I like, it's just, my guts are churning right now just thinking about it, and it's just awful. This is just awful that this stuff can happen behind, beneath the surface of what appears to be such that picture perfect image,
Prosecutors did file that subpoena. At last check, I looked, and a judge had not signed it yet, but he was expected to do that within 24 to 48 hours of when they filed it, which was yesterday. So really any time now he's expected to sign that. And the subpoena really just wants these medical records from the St. George Regional Medical Center for these two children. The prosecutors are telling the hospital that they're important records and relevant and material for a criminal matter, for a criminal investigation. This, of course, coming a few days before Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt are due back in court on their aggravated child abuse case. It's gotten a lot of attention. I did talk to a former prosecutor today and a current defense attorney, and he told me that this case has really captured people's attention because it involves children. He said he's seen a lot of gruesome things over the years and heard a lot, but he says every single time it involves children, that's guaranteed to get the public invested in it.
Well, yeah, because we need to protect them. We need to be better protecting them, and this stuff needs to stop happening. You know, with the amount of times that DCFS and the police were there, and all the reports coming in from Sherry, the daughter, who had lived in the situation and would have a first-hand view, you know, like, something needs to be reformed there and changed there. You know, as an adult woman that had been a child in the family, her words should have meant a lot more than it did. And they shouldn't have been sitting around waiting for Kevin to speak up. I think that's really the main thing in this specific case. Like, they needed somebody needed to be looking closer. Like, just because they had that fancy house and everything looking great and had their little YouTube channel that's, you know, pushing their parenting, good parenting and this and that, somebody needed to be looking at that. Like, there needs to be some more regulatory services involved with these kind of families that have to make contact, that have to be, you know, making contact with the children specifically and checking on their, like, you know, their basic needs are being met. Like, these kids were being starved as punishment, right? Like, even before all of this. So, oh man, and I'm really concerned and thinking that maybe with this medical subpoena that's some of the copious amounts of new evidence that's come up, and I really hope not. I really hope to goodness not that they had suffered physical injuries that required medical care during this time. I really am hoping not, but I'm guessing. I'm guessing that's what this has to do with as well. Like, on top of whatever they may have been finding on hard drives and devices that they seized. It feels horrible in my stomach. But again, we got to keep our thumb on the jugular here.
Now, what to expect for this hearing on Monday? It's going to be a status update for Jodi Hildebrandt and Ruby Franke. But the big question here to be determined on Monday, will they be let out on bail?
Which we already know now, no. The bail hearing has been stayed once again because they couldn't decide. And again, probably because it's such a complex case. And again, because all of this new evidence is coming up. So the next court hearing is going to be October 17th. For those of you just joining us and aren't aware yet, I will keep you all updated. October 17th, and so we will be tuning in on that and doing the live coverage of that as well. But for now, today, I'm keeping you guys up on, we'll get up to the latest on the news with regards to the case, this specific case, and then we're going to be shifting to the after show portion of the segment where we're going to go deeper into just the crimes against children within the Latter-day Saints Church, because the way that they divide things and the way that they shift the blame and try to deflect and confuse everyone on the outside, let alone the people on the inside. Like, obviously some people are confused and unsure of things on the inside, being that Jodi was a highly respected member and of the church and being recommended by the church allegedly. So we just, you know, we want to keep looking at the details beneath the surface. That, I'm sorry I'm laughing, it's not even funny, it's more just laughing in disbelief at how much there really is going on that, like, they've been able to keep covered up over so much time, and they've been able to keep doing, and all these evil people operating under the guise of good, that it's just happening right hidden in plain sight, you know. So it's just, I'm almost in disbelief that as a society we still at this point that we haven't figured it out, you know. So we're going to dive deeper into the Latter-day Saints Church stuff after this. So if you guys want to stay tuned for that, once the stream ends, if you just stick around, it should shift you right over to it. If not, if you go to my channel, it'll be there ready to go to start live after when I shut this off. So anyways, we'll continue, just get you all caught up on the latest, so everybody's on the same page. Everybody knows what's been going on with this the past couple of weeks. I know some people are just kind of tuning into it this past week and a bit, and even just today are completely fresh to it. So I do want to get, like I said, everybody on the same page here.
The guy that I spoke with, the former prosecutor, he said it's possible they could be let out, but it's really too early to say and too difficult to predict because there's so much that still could be shared in court that hasn't yet. So,
yeah, which we know, obviously, there is all this new evidence, so that makes a big difference. And yeah, we've got with this on the poll here, we've got 83% out of 400 votes saying no, that Kevin should not get custody at this current moment. So I think, too, that does still need to be heavily reviewed. And based on the evidence that's surfacing.
See what happens on Monday, but this is really the big question. They've been in jail now more than 2 weeks since being arrested on August 31st. Will a judge decide, are they a flight risk? Are they a risk to the community? And then from that, he'll decide what to do in terms of either letting them out on bail, maybe with restrictions, or keeping them in the Washington County Jail.
All right, Daniel Woodruff, thank you for that report. And of course, remember, on our YouTube channel right now, we have 8 Passengers playlist with a lot of our coverage, including some of the people that we've spoken with in the last few days, and that includes Jodi Hildebrandt's niece, Jessie. You can find all of that on our YouTube channel. YouTube has removed 2 channels linked to Ruby Franke and her business partner, Jodi Hildebrandt, and this is over child abuse charges. The company confirms the 2 will no longer be able to create content on the platform. The man who inspired the movie Sound of Freedom is being strongly rebuked by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. A statement from the church says Tim Ballard used the names of high-ranking church leaders for personal and financial interest.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so here we go. This is sort of the segue then. We can segue into the Latter-day Saints church stuff, and I'll explain this a little better for you guys, and then I think we'll end this segment and then transfer over to the after portion, going deeper into the LDS stuff. Yeah, so basically they had mentioned they'd mentioned the Latter-day Saints Church in that movie, The Sound of Freedom, and that was heavily focusing on these crimes against children and human trafficking and things like that. And they're saying that they mentioned the church leaders for their own personal financial interest, not because of they're trying to expose the crimes against children in the Latter-day Saints Church. Like, come on now. My goodness. So anyways, I'll let this continue to play out while I get this next portion prepared for you here and lined up. It's ready to go, but I just got to get it lined up for you guys. So yeah, if you guys want to just hang tight, stay tuned, and we'll get to the next segment here in a moment.
Nelson will have a live report on this story coming up on 2 News at 6.
My thoughts towards Ruby and Jodi and Kevin and connections is that it was all bullcrap. It was complete indoctrination of this thing that they created.
Sisters of Ruby Franke breaking their silence after the Mormon YouTuber and her business partner are charged with child abuse.
We all felt weird about this Jodi lady. We weren't comfortable with it. We didn't like it. We didn't like the teachings Ruby was bringing to the family functions.
Ruby Franke is being held without bail.
Okay, so yeah, I just wanted to double check. It should just redirect you to the after show after. So if you do want to be part of that, we're going to be just continuing and with the news of the outcome of today, discussing that, and we're going to be diving deeper into the Latter-day Saints Church as a whole. So just stay tuned, and it should redirect you right away. If it doesn't, it should be available right now to go over and jump into the after show. It'll be there. And then it should just start, and you guys should already be in it. But if not, feel free to join us over there. So I am going to end it right here on this segment, in this portion. So please do join us and join in on the discussion. You guys, if you guys are just tuning in and you're just kind of lurking in the background, feel free to join in on the chat with us. This is a discussion overall. So yeah, thank you for tuning in, and if you're taking off for the rest of your day, I appreciate you. Thanks for coming out, and enjoy that.